Hey guys, Steven here with the Old School Labs. In this video we're gonna check out what our bodybuilder is doing now after the Mr. Olympia, and here is a video update of Hunter Labrada post-show, having an insane pump. I mean, take a look at the bubbly muscle that he has now. He looks so 3D, so full. This is not gonna last for very long. I mean, after a while he's gonna smooth out. He's gonna get bigger, yeah, but he will lose the definition and he will not look this impressive. This is post-show. You get glycogen back in your muscle, you get the water back in, so you look super full and you're still conditioned, and you look really impressive at that point, but that's temporary. Anyways, he looks great, and I'm sure he will make a lot of progress till the next Mr. Olympia. And let's talk a little bit about his performance at this year's Mr. Olympia 2020. I think he should be very happy with what he accomplished. I mean, he was able to beat a lot of good guys, including Dexter Jackson, but, losing to Ian Valliere, who he was able to beat actually at the Tampa Pro earlier this year, that kind of made him look like a loser, right? Because he lost the rematch. But he was still able to be top 8 in the world, guys, taking out some of the guys like Dexter, and also here, Justin Luis Rodriguez, who has been competing for a long time, who was also in a good shape. Hunter was in good shape, but I think he was a little bit off. I think he was more conditioned for Tampa Pro, and I think he was more conditioned days leading into this show. And I think he messed it up somehow a little bit, came a little bit watery. I don't know if he talked about it, what's the story behind it, but it happened. I don't think he was fully on in terms of conditioning, but here you can see that between him and 6th place finisher Akim Williams, it wasn't that big of a difference, it wasn't that big of a gap, and he can close that gap in a year or two. I think it's possible. I mean, Akim has been competing for a long time now, and this year he figured out the conditioning a little bit better, but he didn't progress all too much. And this is Hunter's first Mr. Olympia ever, so we can expect Hunter to make faster progress than Akim at this point. But maybe Akim is just starting to mature right now. Maybe his physique is just starting to mature at this point, and he's gonna just get higher in placings. So I guess it could go either way, but we'll see soon. Here you can see him standing next to Hadi Chupan, who was 4th this year and 3rd last year, who is one of the top bodybuilders in the world right now. And Hunter seems not to be having too much problem standing next to him. He's holding his own. He's not being dwarfed or out-conditioned too much or anything, like it's pretty close. Here you can see, I mean, he's a bit taller, so he's standing next to him in terms of size. And this is his first Mr. Olympia ever, guys. I mean, consider that. He turned pro maybe 2 years ago, actually. He had a pro debut this year, and this is his first Mr. Olympia. So I think Hunter is one of those guys that are going to actually be in that top 5, top 3 potentially, one day. And I think most people can actually see this coming if everything goes smoothly, if everything goes well. Anyways, do you know whose arm this is? Did you forget about this guy? Patrick Moore, yep. He's removing his tattoo. He says that he used to do boxing before, and actually now he decided to, commit fully to bodybuilding career. And this tattoo is hurting his definition on his arm, so he's removing it. And he says it's really, really painful, but he has to do what he has to do if he wants to be a really successful bodybuilder. Last year, it was his first Mr. Olympia, and he took 10th place, which is an amazing result. I mean, he was top 10 in the world for his first Mr. Olympia. Hunter was 8th, for example, but the conditioning that Patrick brought to the stage was something that we were missing for many years. So he was a really pleasant surprise with that conditioning. However, the problem is the size. He knows it, everybody knows it. He tried to bring it up for 2020. He didn't really do it. At the Arnold Classic, he was not much bigger. He was just less conditioned, pretty much the same size. I don't think I noticed much of a difference. Maybe he gained some muscle, but he probably grew waist, and so it didn't appear different. Anyways, he needs to get much, much bigger if he wants to be in that ballpark with Hunter Labrada in the future. If he wants to be like top 3, top 4, top 5 Mr. Olympia, he can do that, but he needs to grow and keep that conditioning. That would be amazing. Anyways, it's great that he's doing this with his arm, that he's actually finally removing the tattoo. It means that he's fully committing to bodybuilding. So let's wait, let's watch his progress. Hopefully he will grow eventually, and hopefully he will be conditioned as he usually is on the stage. And with this removed tattoo, his arms are going to look more defined, And I really like the fact that he decided to do this because it just proves us, it just tells us he's gonna be a serious bodybuilder. This wasn't an easy decision to make. I mean, removing a tattoo, that's a commitment and that's really painful. So I'm actually really happy that he's doing this. Not happy that he's going through all this pain, but the fact that he's committing to bodybuilding, that's awesome. Alright, so now we have a physique update of William Bonac, post Olympia, in which he looks absolutely conditioned, shredded, still. And that's the thing with Bonac. It's really not an issue for him to be conditioned. He can maintain this conditioning, I think, easily year around. And he usually is very, very lean in the off season as well. And he's always in condition on stage. He's never really off with conditioning. But this year on the stage, he wasn't his old self. It wasn't his, for example, 2019 Arnold Classic version. No, that I consider his best ever. It wasn't even as good as 2019 Mr. Olympia. I don't know what happened. Is it simply the age that is coming to get him? Is it maybe the fact that he's not working with Neil Hill anymore? Is it something else entirely? Maybe an injury? He suffered a quad injury last year. But he was much better at that Arnold Classic 2019. I hope he can bring that shape back, because if he brought it to the Mr. Olympia this year, who knows what would happen. I mean, I believe he would be at least third. I think this shape beats Phil Heath easily. And maybe even Brandon as well. Yeah, maybe. Not likely, because he's very short and blocky. But I think he would be at least third. I don't know, maybe he would win the Mr. Olympia. But I don't know if he can actually bring this shape back. And I don't think Neil Hill would like to work with him again. Unfortunately, that ended, and it didn't really end well. So it could be the reason, it could be just the age, it could be the injury, it could be just simply him not being so passionate about bodybuilding anymore, which I don't really think is the case. Whatever it is, it's not as good of a version of himself as it once was. And look at this at Arnold Classic. I mean, this was just amazing here. Full conditioned, insane, really freaky, really 3D bubbly kind of physique. I hope he can bring it back someday. Let's hope. Alright, next we have a posing video of Big Ramy, I believe 1 week out of Mr. Olympia. He came to US 2 weeks out of Mr. Olympia. And he was already in shape, as Dennis James says. Oh yeah, this video was posted by Dennis James, who is one of Big Ramy's coaches, or should I rather say a trainer. So he trained him, especially posing. Yeah, so he really drilled him, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons why Ramy won. Because the judges were draining those guys on the stage. They were posing so much, so many call-outs. And Big Ramy, he was confident the entire time. I mean, he was sweating and it was visible that he was struggling, but he was not letting the foot off the gas pedal. He was just trying super hard all the time. And if he didn't go through these posing sessions with Dennis James, I don't think he would do that well on that stage. He would probably just fade away. But no, he practiced the posing with Dennis James, and so he was really good on that stage. And one of the biggest reasons he won, actually. He was really dominant against the other guys. I think judges actually had him winning in the first, but then, after they saw him dominating that stage against Phil Heath and Brandon Curry, they finally decided to give him the victory, and he deserved it. So it's not all about what you bring to the stage. It's kind of how you present yourself on that stage as well. So that and training are parts of bodybuilding that make bodybuilding a sport. So it's not just how you look on stage and that's it. No, you need to fight on that stage to win. Yeah, posing, you have rounds. You need to be really in a good shape. You know, your heart and your lungs, your cardiovascular shape needs to be really on a high level. So you need to be really good at posing. I know this from my experience. There was this one show that I just posed like a maniac. I flexed as hard as I could. I didn't pay attention to my breathing, and after the call-outs, because first it was just the entire group and then it was a top 3, I cracked the top 3. After that posing round, I thought I was gonna faint. Yeah, it was really tough. So I learned a lesson. Like the next show, I was just trying to breathe more carefully, more sparingly, so I didn't have that big of an issue. And I also need to practice posing, and Big Ramy did that, and that's why he dominated the stage. That was a big reason. But I'm sure when Dennis took a look at the Big Ramy at this point, he probably knew that Big Ramy is most likely going to win the Mr. Olympia because he was in shape here. Yep, he was in shape. I mean, for Big Ramy standards, he was in shape. He was pretty close as far as conditioning as 2017 Mr. Olympia, but maybe a little bit bigger and fuller. And he had a little bit different posing, but it was pretty close. I think he matured a little bit more for this year's Mr. Olympia, and it was not as fierce of a competition as it was 2017. I mean, back in the day, Phil Heath was at his best in 2017, so it was tough to win that title. However, this year, with his physique, it was good enough. It was good enough. I mean, he dwarfed the entire lineup. That's something that he usually does, but he was in shape as well, so of course, he won it. And here you can see his physique 1 week out of Mr. Olympia. So he was on. He was on like 2 weeks out. He didn't change much from that point. He just practiced the posing. And I'm sure that actually kind of brought the conditioning up a little bit. I mean, it's sort of cardio. Most bodybuilders don't do cardio until the day of the show. For the last week or 2 weeks, they just practice a lot of posing. Fasted posing in the middle of the day. And when they're carving up, also there's a lot of posing. When you're eating a lot of carbs, you need to flex the muscles so the carbs will go to right places. So yeah, with a lot of posing, he was really good on that stage. He was dominant, and in his conditioning didn't fade away. His shape, he was just getting better as the rounds went on. And that was a tough show to pose at, that Mr. Olympia. The judges were really draining these guys. They really drilled them, and Big Ramy turned out to be a winner because he practiced it a lot, as Dennis James says. Well-deserved victory, and I think Dennis James helping with his posing was a big influence to that victory. I don't know what's going on with these Middle Easterners, but they love bodybuilding. They really love bodybuilding. I wish this was the case with my country. Unfortunately, it's not. It's probably never gonna be. By the way, this is Hadi, I believe 1 or 2 weeks out of Mr. Olympia. He was posing outdoors. I'm sure there was a lot of people just admiring, being in awe of his physique. And he did look amazing at that point. And when he got home back from Mr. Olympia, this is how he was received. This is how he was received. Him and Big Ramy both, they really, they were really appreciated by their people. So Iran and Egypt, people from those two countries really love bodybuilding. They really have a lot of respect for bodybuilders, and it's really beautiful to see something like this. I wish it was the case with every country in the world, but yeah, not likely. And as you can see right here, I mean, Hadi, he took 4th place this year. Last year he was 3rd. Still, this lineup was better, and he actually climbed up a spot in a way because he beat William Bonac. Last year he wasn't able to. This year you had Big Ramy and Phil Heath come back. So, he actually made progress in terms of placing in a way. Amazing homecoming for Hadi Chopin. I'm really happy for him, and I'm really happy to see that bodybuilding is appreciated in other countries. Anyways guys, that's gonna do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please like it. If you want to see more, subscribe. All the best guys, and keep it old school.